Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. We are here, as always, to cover the latest events, the latest goings on in the world. I normally give you all about 30 seconds to go before we start the live broadcast. That way, everybody can settle in. People can be in the room. I can do some shouts out. We didn't do that today because I hit the wrong button. That's all. Nothing fancy about it. I just hit the wrong button. But we're going to keep rocking anyway. We're going to do tonight something that we do every single night, and that is cover Israel's war on Gaza. Tonight, Israel's war on Gaza has reached day 183. Again, day 183. And we're going to cover all of that tonight. Some of the biggest developments that have gone on. Some interesting developments have certainly happened. And I can't wait to share them with you, to talk about it, not because we want to wallow in misery and not because we want to inure anybody to the pain and to the stress and to the drama of what's going on out there, but because we want you to be aware of what corporate media won't allow you to see. We want you to recognize what the powerful politicians out there want to misrepresent. We want to have a different conversation so that we can have a different analysis so that ultimately we can achieve what justice requires, and that is a free Palestine. In the meantime, I want to shout out Bob Vaughn, first one in the room, part of the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Literally Fake is here as well. Omar Hamdan is here. Jazz LP is in the building from Dallas. Dallas's finest. Miriam Manjara is here also in the building. See, shout out my sister. So good to see you. Ooh, I ain't seen this brother in a month of Sundays. Jordan Taylor. So good to see you, my brother. Noob. That's the way it go. Mike Richards, hit me all the way from UAE. Ahlan wa sahlan. We got some interesting people in the building today. Kitiwe Zulu is here, shouting you out. Kime Aboyade Acosta is here. MX Samael is here. Rose Ability is here. Sasha, I don't think I've seen you in here before. Shout out to you. Meg L. If ain't nobody show enough consistent in showing up in this room, is Meg L. She shows up. She shows love all the time. Baby K, good to see you as well. Karen D, good to see you. Bullet the Bunny, so good to see you. Michelle in Wash, so good to see you. And Michelle, Bullet, I seen you, the question you asked. I'm not ignoring it. We're going to come back to it. Nicole Davis, good evening to you. Dr. Jade and Jules, shout out to you. Herman Gill, good to see you. Deja, good to see you. Family, we have a lot of ground to cover in a short amount of time, so I'm going to make sure that we cover it. And I'm going to start off with the biggest updates, and obviously the most critical update right now as we talk about the lost Palestinian life is literally the number of Palestinian lives lost. As of right now, at least 33,137 Palestinians have been killed. An additional 75,815 have been wounded in Israeli attacks on Gaza since October 7th. Now, the death toll in Israel since October 7th from Hamas's attack on October 7th stands at 1,139, with, of course, dozens of people still captive. We got some breaking news from about 11 minutes ago. The Israeli army has announced the death of 4 more soldiers during fighting in the southern Gaza Strip last night, including a squad commander from their elite infantry unit. Now, there's the military wing of Hamas. They're known as the Qassam brigades. Earlier, they claimed 9 Israeli soldiers were killed in the district in East Khan Yunis. The name of the district is Azana. Also 5 in the Amal neighborhood. So these numbers are jiving. And of course, the deaths bring the total number of Israeli soldiers killed in Gaza since October 7th to 604. That includes 268 that were killed since the start of ground operations, which began on October 26th. That's breaking news. It's important to let you know as we talk about what's going on in Khan Yunis, because all day there have been conversations about this intense combat that's taking place between Israeli forces and Palestinian fighters. Whatever you think of war, whatever you think of violence, it's important to be accurate. And so much of the conversation has been about the Palestinian people's death rates, the Palestinian people's starvation rates, the complete destruction of the Gaza Strip, all of which has to be covered as we talk about this genocide. But we also don't want to pretend that Palestinians aren't resisting. We don't want to pretend that Palestinians are laying down and being passive. Palestinians are fighting back. Palestinians are resisting. Um, and that's what you're seeing in Khan Yunis right now. At the same time that there's intense fighting in Khan Yunis, there are also mediators who are trying to resume ceasefire talks. The idea today, and by today I mean really Sunday, and here in America it's about to turn midnight, but it's Sunday, which 7 hours from now, it will be Sunday at 7 a.m. and that's where we are in Palestine right now. And the idea is that mediators would be connecting and having peace talks in Cairo today, in the next few hours. Hamas is sending a delegation, and the Israeli war cabinet is expected to be there. And I should say they're hoped to be there. They have yet to decide whether they're going to participate in these talks or not. The fact that they're in Egypt is encouraging. The president of Egypt, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, has a solid relationship with Israel at this point, to the detriment of the Palestinians, as does King Hussein in Jordan. So what we're going to see, I think, if not today, certainly within a few days, is the resuming of ceasefire talks. The challenge, of course, is that both sides are fairly clear about what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do. And until there's a permanent ceasefire, it doesn't look like Hamas is going to move. And Israel seems to have no interest in such a move. At the same time that these negotiations are not happening and people want them to happen, there are significant rumblings and significant currents of resistance within Israeli society. Today, tens of thousands of Israeli protesters rallied in Tel Aviv, and they were calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They want a deal. They want a, I won't say they want a ceasefire for the benefit of Palestinians. That's not what the polling data shows. But what we do know is that the Israeli people want a return of all captives. They want a return of all hostages. They want people to come home, and they feel like Netanyahu has not done his part to secure that deal. And there's a way that people are going to say at some point, look, I don't care what you got to do. I don't care how you got to do it. Just get it done. And the one thing that Netanyahu has not done is get it done. Why has he not gotten it done, you might ask? Well, there's lots of theories on that. I'm about to wipe my lens. There's lots of theories on that. But the most fundamental and obvious theory, if you want to even call it that, is that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to jail. Benjamin Netanyahu is going to jail at some point. He will certainly be prosecuted at some point. I'm not sure what the Israeli basic laws, because we have to call them basic laws. There's no constitution. But I don't know what the Israeli basic laws say about pardoning former prime ministers. I don't know what Netanyahu's successor could do. But it's also important to recognize that, given the way political coalitions work in Israel, that Benjamin Netanyahu's successor may not want to do anything. I don't know. But either way, Netanyahu is in a heap of danger and trouble politically and legally once he's no longer prime minister. Well, the thing that makes him prime minister at this point is the fact that he's a wartime leader. And it's hard to, remove someone from office or to vote someone out of office or to fight for political regime change when there is a war, ostensibly, that demands continuity. So Netanyahu has every reason, he has every investment, he has every motivation to say, war, 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 war. We worry about peace later. There's no energy for peace. There's no time for peace in the Netanyahu political playbook. There's no time for peace. There's no need for peace. There's no advantage to peace. The advantage right now is to continue to fearmonger and warmonger. And those two things combined, saying, hey, we have to keep warring to protect you, citizens and civilians, that doctrine is working to some extent. Now, there are a lot of people who don't believe Netanyahu. They still dislike Netanyahu. They still don't trust Netanyahu. They still want another election so they can have a shot at somebody else. But after the elections of the last few years in Israel, people are fatigued from elections. People are exhausted from elections. But I think they may be developing an appetite for elections and for regime change after watching Netanyahu move the way he has recently. And by recently, I mean this most recent term of his. Some other things going on. Some things that I think are actually interesting. Israel said that it will temporarily reopen the Beit Hanun crossing with northern Gaza. That's the Eretz crossing. And they said that they're opening it up to give aid. Now, the timing of this is interesting, but it's also very clear. A few hours prior, President Biden had warned Israel that it needed to take steps to protect civilians and to allow humanitarian aid workers in, because there's a national spectacle. There's an international spectacle, an international crisis that they're responding to now with the World Central Kitchen, when their employees got struck by Israeli military violence in a way that was indefensible, and inexcusable. On that note, the Israeli military has dismissed 2 officers. They've reprimanded 3 others for their roles in this attack that I'm talking about in central Gaza that killed 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers. This, of course, is a U.S.-based charity that is trying to simply get people access to food. The Israeli government says that they mishandled information and violated the army's rules of engagement. They violated everybody's rules of engagement. I don't know if they mishandled critical information, if they disregarded critical information, or if this is the outcome that they really wanted. I don't know. I'm not going to assign motivations to these particular forces, but what I will say, structurally and systemically, this entire war is designed to destroy the Palestinian people, and that doesn't happen successfully by following the rules of war. On that note, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that Israel's military campaign in Gaza has brought about quote, relentless death and destruction to Palestinians in Gaza. He said lives are shattered. Respect for international humanitarian law is in tatters. Now, the UN has had a complicated relationship with Israel for a long time, and it's not surprising to anybody, including Israel, I would imagine, that the UN Secretary General made these comments. And we've heard from Francesca Albanese, we've heard from other UN personnel, high-ranking UN personnel, who have said very similar things about Israel. There doesn't seem to be much doubt about what Israel is capable of and what Israel is actively doing. Israel, of course, ignores the UN largely and says that they're an anti-Semitic organization designed to bring them down. When you set the table like that, when you set the stage like that for that kind of critique, it makes it very easy. Sorry, y'all, I hit the wrong button. When you set the table like that, when you set the stage for a certain kind of recognition or understanding of who and what the UN is, and you frame it as anti-Jewish, then sure, it's easy to say, well, then why should we trust their findings? So that's part of what the smear campaign is. Very similar things happened to UNRWA, right, which is a UN agency, the Relief Works Agency, which handles the provision of life-giving resources for Palestinian refugees, particularly in the West Bank and East Jerusalem and Gaza. They smeared it as a terrorist organization that was complicit in 10/7, so that now there's no space to have the kind of critique of Israel based on UNRWA's complaints. There's no reason to show just how economically exploited and economically impoverished and economically depressed the Palestinian people are through these systems if, again, the agencies that are best prepared to point out those circumstances, in this case, the UN, RWA, as well as Human Rights Watch and other organizations that have been not allowed into the right areas in Gaza. If the best way to prove it is through them and they can't get in, then it's easier to make your case. Facts be damned. right? Well, we got a troll in the room. Just ignore them, y'all. You know, life is hard. Okay, they're in timeout. And next time I'll just ban them completely. I don't know how to do all this tech stuff. Sometimes I was online stuff, so don't charge to my head, not my heart. But yeah, we're in a very interesting moment. We're in the midst of a very interesting set of circumstances. Ultimately, the UN speaking out against Israel, the Secretary General speaking out is a big deal. The ICJ is a big deal. The tragic killing of those 7 WCK workers is a big deal. In that case, the world will simply say, oh my God, white people were killed too. And their deaths are simply more legible. They're more grievable, to use Judith Butler's work and language. And because of that, people are now saying, oh my God, there's really a problem. And so when we continue to pile those things on, we get somewhere very, very troublesome. So we'll see what happens. In other news, an Israeli air raid on a house in southern Lebanon has killed 3 people involved with the Amal movement. That's Lebanon's other Shia political party. An Israeli investigation found that an Israeli woman, Efrat Katz, who was seized during the October 7th Hamas-led attacks, was, quote, most likely killed when an Israeli combat helicopter fired on her kidnapper's vehicle. So again, you know, the capturing of kidnaps, or the capturing or kidnapping of civilians is, to me, out of bounds. It is an atrocity, is a moral atrocity, it's illegal, it is a contravention of international law. It is problematic. It's indefensible, it's inexcusable. I'm gonna be clear about that, because later on they'll say that I wasn't. Let me be very clear about that. I don't defend the capturing of any innocent people. The Israeli military is compounding this problem through its commitment to indiscriminate firing and indiscriminate attacks on Palestinian civilians. So what ends up happening is what? What ends up happening? Well, they're shooting every car, threatening that Hamas is in it. Every residential building almost has been attacked. Every commercial building almost has been attacked. And these aren't like hyperbolic statements. More than 70% of the buildings in Gaza have been destroyed. All the universities, you know, a lot of the schools. There's just a complete destruction of the built environment. But there's also been a wave of carpet bombing. There's been attacks on refugee camps and hospitals and schools. And so when you commit like that to killing anywhere and everywhere, then there's a really good chance you're going to end up killing civilians who are there as well, even the hostages. I don't want to see one hostage die. I don't want to see one kidnapped person die. Part of this, though, is on the Israeli government to handle. Although, again, I support the release of all hostages. I support a permanent ceasefire. I support non-violence in the region and the following of international law. I don't know if I'll ever see it, but that's what I hope. Former U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who is, of course, a key friend, ally, you know, whatever, of Biden, has joined a group of people calling for a halt to weapons transfers to Israel. So even Nancy Pelosi, who has been lockstep with Biden on these issues for years now, and Obama to a large extent, is now coming around for whatever reason. Maybe it's her conscience peeking out now that she's not the House Speaker, or maybe she's learning more on the issue. I don't know. But either way, I'm glad to see some movement happening here. I'm glad to see some development here. That's super important to me. Colombia has asked the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, to allow the country to join South Africa's case accusing Israel of genocide in the Gaza Strip. So Colombia is like, look, we don't want you to be alone, South Africa. We'll step up and speak out as well. They have made an application to the court, and they said they did so, or they asked the ICJ to do so, quote, to ensure the, quote, safety and indeed the very existence of the Palestinian people. This is the tone of the global community right now. If we don't do anything, people are going to die. More Palestinians are going to die. And so many have been killed already, unfortunately, tragically, that we may see the end of the very existence of the Palestinian people. Now, I happen to believe in Samud. I happen to believe in steadfastness. I happen to believe that the Palestinian people are all going to stand tall and stand strong and be victorious, and that we will live to see a free Palestine. I do believe all of that. But we can't ignore the risks. We gotta be prisoner to the risks. But yeah. Anyway, family, a lot going on. We caught you up on most of it. A couple more quick things. The UN Human Rights Council adopted a resolution for Israel to be held accountable for possible war crimes and crimes against humanity. For what, you might ask? Well, for what's happening in the Gaza Strip right now. The UN Human Rights Council is also demanding a halt to all weapons, all arms sales in the country. No more. Yeah, we have to do that, right? Because if we don't halt gun sales to the country, we're going to continue to have, these passionate cries for liberation, these passionate cries for peace, these demands for a ceasefire, and they'll applaud you, pat you on the head, and keep sending weapons contracts to whoever in the world needs them. It does, in the weapons industry isn't. Yeah, it's a complicated, messy thing, and we'll talk about more later. But I wanted to at least give you all that update. I want to thank everybody for checking me out. We got time for a couple of these quick questions as well. So what I'd like to do is go into office hours. So everybody, if you give me 1 minute to reset, we'll do some office hours here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Stay right here, and a lot more coming back on the other side.
Right, you make her happy, so you'll be all right. And happy wife normally is about happy life for me.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It ain't about her, it's about you.
So Van says that because Jewish people showed up for Black Americans during the Civil Rights era, he now feels compelled to stand with them now. Let me be clear.
What's the white liberal ideology I'm following?
I'm not saying you.
No, that's what you said. So I'm saying, which one?
No one is free until we are all free. There's no room for any injustice.
Right, you make her happy, so you'll be all right. And happy wife normally is about happy life for me.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It ain't about her, it's about you.
So Van says that because Jewish people showed up for Black Americans during the Civil Rights era, he now feels compelled to stand with them now. Let me be clear.
What's the white liberal ideology I'm following?
I'm not saying you.
No, that's what you said. So I'm saying, which one?
No one is free until we are all free. There's no room for any injustice.
Right, you make her happy, so you'll be all right. And happy wife normally is about happy life for me.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It ain't about her, it's about you.
So Van says that because Jewish people showed up for Black Americans during the Civil Rights era, he now feels compelled to stand with them now. Let me be clear.
What's the white liberal ideology I'm following?
I'm not saying you.
No, that's what you said. So I'm saying, which one?
No one is free until we are all free. There's no room for any injustice.
Right, you make her happy, so you'll be all right. And happy wife normally is about happy life for me.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It ain't about her, it's about you.
So Van says that because Jewish people showed up for Black Americans during the Civil Rights era, he now feels compelled to stand with them now. Let me be clear.
What's the white liberal ideology I'm following?
I'm not saying you.
No, that's what you said. So I'm saying, which one?
No one is free until we are all free. There's no room for any injustice. Peace, family. I'm back. Wanted to take some questions as we talk about the war on Gaza. We don't have to take just war on Gaza questions, but since we're still in the war on Gaza conversation, I'm happy to take some questions, some comments. We'll do a quick session of office hours about Israel, Palestine. Can't take all of them, but I will take a few of them. Let's see here. Robert Fantina authored Settler Colonialism in Palestine and Kashmir. It makes a correlation between settler colonialism in Palestine and in the Kashmir region of India. I am not a scholar of India. I am not a expert on Kashmir, so let me stipulate that first. But ultimately, when you talk about settler colonialism, you're talking about processes of colonial domination, or me not use the word colonial, I want to use the definition in the word, or the word and definition, whatever. It's a form of, settler colonialism is a project of domination, of replacement, of extraction. But it's not just to go into a place and dominate it, it's to go into a place and remove the indigenous population. And so, there are debates about whether, by some people, about whether Kashmir is indeed a settler colonial project. There are also debates about whether Palestine is a settler colonial project. I think that it's a tougher argument in both cases than in some other places where I think there is some gray. But when the Indian government revoked the autonomous status of Kashmir, when we watched there are literal settlements being built in Kashmir, and if settler colonialism is about the recruitment of a settler class, whether it's whoever, right, to occupy indigenous land, and again to not just come and settle, but to transfer. Right? In the case of Palestine, as Benny Mars talked about, right, that the project of Israeli settler colonialism was predicated upon what the expulsion or transfers were to use, but it's really just expulsion, right, of indigenous people. And so in the context of Israel-Palestine, we've talked a lot about the settler colonial nature of it. Under the kind of auspices and power and leadership of the British, we saw a wave of Zionist immigration that led to the expulsion of 700,000+ indigenous people. But settler colonial is also a way of framing a logic, a way of framing an approach of control, an approach to how can I put it? An approach to leadership, an approach to government or statecraft, an approach to public policy. In 2019, India, I said this already, but they revoked the autonomous status of Kashmir along with Jammu, I believe. But in doing so, they abrogated. I'm going to have to look this up because I don't remember the articles. Give me like 10 seconds because I don't want to give you the wrong information. Articles 370 and 35A of the Indian Constitution. The important one of those is 35A because it preserves Kashmiri identity. It gives the Kashmir Legislative Assembly, the equivalent of Congress, the authority to define what a permanent resident is, and to give certain privileges to permanent residents, like owning land, public property, etc. And so what we then saw after 35A is revoked is that the Indian government is then recruiting non-Kashmiris to come in and claim permanent residency and claim citizenship, which does what? It dilutes the religious makeup, it dilutes the ethnic makeup, it dilutes the civic makeup of the Indian population. So again, it's a colonial practice, right? Laws are shifted. External communities are brought in to a region to overtake the indigenous population. You could argue back and forth about whether Kashmir is a settler colonial project, but I think that argument it'd be pretty hard to argue that it is not after, what we saw 5 years ago almost, and certainly over the last 10 years, with the Indian government not only becoming more right-wing, not only becoming more proto-fascist, as we saw here in the United States, as we saw in Brazil, as we saw in other places, but to see a very specific settler colonial project come that is just unsettling. It's not depopulating, but certainly the word I'm looking for is dispossessing. Thank you. Dispossessing native Kashmiris. Again, there are people out there who know more about Kashmir than I do. That ain't hard. It's just very difficult to see any area where there is the dispossession of land, the emergence of new people into an indigenous space, and the depopulation of indigenous folk from that space and not call it settler colonial. That's what I would say. Bullet the Bunny asks, how much longer here, Mark? I'm assuming you mean with the daily updates. And I take that to mean, how long do I think this war is going to go on, this so-called war? I don't know. You're a military expert either, but I think we will see some ceasefire or some semblance of a ceasefire, some pretext, not of a ceasefire, but maybe, I think what you'll see, I don't think Israel or Netanyahu in particular, after saying he's going to be relentless and unrelenting and he's not going to stop until Hamas is completely gone, you can't then call for a ceasefire when he's given all these political reasons why a ceasefire does not work permanently. So I think he's going to have a ceasefire by another name. But the truth is always the truth. It always has been and always will be. And in this case, the truth is, as others have said, America can stop this right now if they stop sending money and weapons. And if they stop giving them political coverage or cover. But it doesn't seem that that's going to be happening. Bullets follows up with yes or no on the Rafah invasion. Do I think there's going to be a Rafah invasion? Yeah, I do. I think the best we can hope for is a scaled down Rafah invasion. Netanyahu has basically staked his political power on the Rafah invasion. He has said from the beginning that it's necessary, that it's urgent, and that the ICJ can't back him down, that the United States can't back him down, that nobody can stop him from invading Rafah because it's necessary to eliminate the threat of Hamas. That's his argument. He has yet to do it. 6 weeks ago, it was supposed to have happened. 4 weeks ago, it was supposed to have happened. They've tried to sort of demarcate and highlight humanitarian corridors and humanitarian shelters, sanctuaries is what I was looking for, a little bit north of Rafah for civilians. But it's very difficult to imagine that if there's a ground invasion, that we won't see mass scale death, mass scale human rights violations and crisis and desperation, whatever word you want to use, and that you won't see, sadly, which may be the real point of all of this, that you won't. I think there's going to be an exodus out of the Gaza Strip into Egypt, unfortunately. My close friend lives in Jammu now. He moved from Indian government, encouraged Indian state projects and territory riot. Do you think the U.S. will move to ban weapon sales following the recent changes in UK approach to Gaza? Look, once Nancy Pelosi stands up and says she's down to stop giving weapons to Israel, all bets are off. I'm sure Netanyahu was losing his mind when he heard that. Let's keep going. Ariane Khan says, free Palestine, Kashmir, and any oppressed people. Salam to brother MLH. I agree. Not with the salam to me part, but the free everybody part. I appreciate the salams. I send them back to you, my brother. Read the 25-page UN report on sexual assault and is not real. Rape was described as plausible. However, since there's been a development with the news story with Amit, Susanna, what's your take on it? I haven't seen the news story with Amit, Susanna. I will read up on it and find out, and I'll give you the answer. I do know, and I have maintained that based on what I've read from the UN, the idea that there was sexual assault on October 7th is quite plausible. The idea that there was more than isolated cases of it is also possible. I don't know if it's plausible. But I have yet to see a persuasive or compelling report in either direction that closed the case for me. I need more information. I don't have a problem saying that sexual assault likely happened there because it likely did. I'm not, however, comfortable speaking about mass rapes and mass beheadings when the evidence just hasn't shown that yet. But for me, the gruesomeness of October 7th doesn't hinge upon whether those things happened. The moral transgression that occurred wasn't because people were simply sexually assaulted before they were murdered or beheaded after they killed the babies, God forbid. The acts themselves were awful, and the accompanying acts, these other acts that are being debated, may have more criminal intensity in the court in terms of the court system, or they may have more. They may conjure more individual moral outrage, sure, but at the end of the day, the capturing of hostages, the killing of civilians is something that we should see as a problem. That said, we also don't want to reinforce dishonest media narratives, which came straight from the Israeli government, making it seem as if Palestinians and Hamas in particular weren't merely fighting for their liberation, which they are, but instead were some kind of irrational, violent, gruesome freaks who aren't just fighting for freedom, but they're using it as an excuse or even a pretext to sexually assault Israelis. There's a narrative that's building that I think needs to be backed by data and evidence, not speculation. And that goes for whatever position you're taking on this. Troy Nkrumah, my brother, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. You have no idea how much it means to me, man. Shout out to you out there, way out there doing the work. Yeah, it's beautiful to see you out there working and struggling and building every single day. Not for name recognition, not for fame, not for resume building, but because you actually care about the liberation of our people, man. I have such admiration and love for you, as you already know, bro. Ariane Khan, free Palestine, free Kashmir, free all those who are oppressed in the world. Shout out to you, appreciate you. Meg done gifted another membership. I'm so grateful, thank you. What do you say to people who brush off the deaths by saying it's war, get over it? I tell people, people don't say that to me in general, but in general, although some have, it's mostly social media trolls and the occasional super ideologue. But what we do know is that one, indiscriminate killing and the wanton murder of or just killing of any group of people only makes things worse for everybody. It only creates more conditions of unsafety, more global lawlessness. When all these things are happening, it ultimately comes back to our doorstep. We should remember that. Yeah, we got to fight. We got to fight. There are rules in war, refugee said. That's exactly right. But even beyond the rules of war, because most people think of that as international law, and they say, oh, it's not a real thing, and international humanitarian conventions, and yeah, blah, 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 blah. So we have to get people to a different kind of space of how to think about this. And part of it comes down to believing that Palestinian lives are worth something. Part of it, that they deserve to live and thrive and be protected and be entitled to safety. And there are a lot of people who simply don't believe that. Anyway, I appreciate y'all, family. I'm going to cut out. I'm going to probably jump back on tonight with a whole other. I think we may do some J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar recap type stuff. But either way, it's been a blessing talking to y'all, family. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you haven't already. Hit the like button so YouTube knows that you're out there and that you're rocking with me. Also, the subscribe button goes a long way. I want to thank all of you for your generous donations, and I ask anyone else who would love to support the channel, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. They are free. If you want to spend more than free, free 99, just go to to Cash App. And you can send a direct cash payment or donation is probably a better way of saying it, to $MLHTV, $MLHTV. It goes right to us. If everybody watching right now gave $5, we would be set for the week. I'm not even exaggerating. If everybody right now watching gave $5 on the Cash App, we would be free. Or if you want to do it through the super chat, or some of you feel better doing it through the super chat, that's fine. If everybody dropped in $6 or $5.90, $5, whatever, I know they take out a percentage, which is why I like the Cash App. But regardless of how you pay or how you donate it, if you donate something to the page through Cash App, we'd be blessed and grateful. And of course, you can become a member of the channel. One of the things we love is when people like Nalaya Smith, who just joined the channel, give her a round of applause. When people like Nalaya join the channel, everything gets better because we have more support, we have more voices, we have people who are willing to support this channel on a monthly basis, and that means absolutely everything. So I'm grateful to anybody who did that. Abe as well. Thank you for joining the channel. We appreciate you. We love you. God bless you. This is going to be it's going to be a good month. I'll just say that in terms of our ability to come together and galvanize in response to the awfulness of this world, not just internationally, but domestically. We got a lot of awful stuff happening, and we need to push back. We need to fight. We need to struggle together. And hopefully we can do that. And one of the spaces that I want to do that is through social media and through an independent media network. That's why I do Marc Lamont Hill TV. It wasn't to get rich. It was to create space so that we can resist together, we can build together, we can teach together. And that we'll have the humility to be taught when we need to be taught, and we'll have the engagement and commitment to teach when it's time to teach. But we got to do both. I want to thank you, Charmaine Mootman. Charmaine Mootman. She is loyal. She is a believer, right? Mootman, or Mootmanoon, as we used to say back in the day. You know, those who are faithful, those who have a lot of iman. In fact, the word iman, which means faith, it also is in the word imani. Iman is tied to the word mu'min. So now she might be a different kind of mu'min, you know, or something, but that's where that comes from. Anyway, welcome to the channel, my sister, and thank you for joining with a silver membership. I'm noticing, I'm sorry, she didn't join the channel. She donated $9.99, which is the cost of a silver membership, which I hope people do. But feel free if you want to do it as a super chat, if you want to do it as a super sticker, if you want to make a comment, I'm happy to answer it. If you don't, and you just want to make a donation, we appreciate that. We love that. We're just grateful to have so much support and so much love. It means more than you could ever imagine. We got a couple comments coming in, I think. Tima said, I mean, thank you. I enjoyed the call with the Pan-African Republican. It'll be nice to do debates like that here and there. Agreed. A lot of people tell me I should have let that debate run a little longer so that I could have fully mollywopped them and broke it down for him. But I wasn't trying to grandstand. I wasn't trying to make him look stupid. I just, you know, felt the need to ask some questions as he went about his weird business. And he's still online talking trash about me. It's wild out here, man. It's wild out here. That's all I can say. Anyway, y'all, I appreciate y'all. Feel free to join the channel. Feel free to drop something on our Cash App. If not, just hit like or join or subscribe to let YouTube know how much we mean to you and what the work means to you. And again, I'll be up soon with another conversation on another topic that I think y'all might find interesting. Stay right here. We'll be right back.